Friends, it's Rosalind. Welcome back to my garden. I thought today we would just walk around the gardens and look at everything that's in bloom. I had thought about waiting a few days to do this tour until I have everything deadheaded and the spring foliage cut back, but I was afraid we have quite a bit of heat right now, and I was afraid if I wait for a few days, the flowers would be faded, and I really wanted to show you what's blooming in the June garden. Also, over there in that birdhouse, I don't know if you can see it, but there's tree swallows in there and they have baby birds. So they start swooping at you as soon as you get anywhere close to them. So I will try to get you as close as possible so we can see the flowers that are in bloom over there without getting pecked. So we are going to walk around the cut flower garden, see what's blooming in here, and then we'll walk up to the patio garden, see what's blooming up there, and then I'm going to take you out to the new cut flower garden because, oh my goodness, that thing has been a bit of a pain this spring. There is loads of weeds in there that I can't get rid of. Maybe you guys have some ideas, but we'll talk about that more when we get out there. Let's walk around and see what's blooming. I think we'll start right in here. This is about the closest that the tree swallows allow me to get to their birdhouse. But we have the sunflower patch right in here for cut flower growth, the grape arbor, right there's a butterfly bush, but the daisies are blooming, the delphinium, you see the pink phlox is just starting to bloom. There's some yarrow and lots of lavender in here. The white phlox is done blooming, and back here, this is a climbing rose that I planted in here a few years ago, and it's just a short one. It only gets like 6 feet tall, but it had completely broken off through the winter, but it's popped back out. Look at that bloom. So in the fall, this actually gets like an apricot color. It's a very pretty rose. I got it at Menards, so I'm honestly not sure what the variety is. The window boxes that we planted just last week are looking very good. We have some daisies there, Russian sage in there. These poppies are done blooming. The bee balm is beautiful right now. And an incredible blush hydrangea. This is a baby. I planted it just last fall, but it's just starting to get its flowers. So excited to see that in full bloom. And then we have some yellow yarrow in there, some daylilies that are just getting ready to bloom, and some more daisies. This is a clematis. I think it's called Still Waters. It's starting to fade, as you can see, but it's also not a very tall plant. This is about the tallest it gets. It's probably at 5 feet right now. Very pretty. Butterfly weed is starting to bloom, and the little bistro set that we painted last week and put a little begonia planter on top. This is a phlox that I got from my mom, and it gets the most beautiful flowers, usually late July. So pretty. We have some gay flower in here that's starting to bud up, some more daisies, lemon zest rose that stays very small. I have some lavender planted in here that's starting to bloom. The bumbles absolutely love the lavender. And some echinacea coneflower, some more bee balm right in there, and a miniature rose shrub that my mom gave to me a few years ago. Every year, like it looks like this all season from spring through fall, filled with flowers. We have some pincushion right in there, some agastache right in front of the bird bath. This, when it's in full bloom, is usually covered with bumbles as well. Honeybees, they absolutely love this plant. I have some creeping coreopsis in front of that, and veronica that I recently planted. Flowers have kind of faded on it, but I thought it was very fitting to put the veronica right in front of the Emily Bronte rose, which is pretty much done blooming for right now. Let's look at this flower. Oh, that's so pretty. But it just kind of reminded me of a wedding bouquet with those two together. Right under this crabapple is a firelight hydrangea that's just starting to bud up. You can see the blooms on there, or the buds, I should say. This rose is a David Austin rose that it's a rose that I'm not very fond of. It's probably the only David Austin rose that I'm not really fond of, but it's Harlow Carr. It just has very small blooms, but I don't know. I feel like most of the season it kind of looks like this. But over here, we have another rose that's completely done blooming, and I still need to come in here and deadhead it. This is a lily. It's the first year that it's bloomed for me. I was so excited to see these blooms. It's called apricot fudge. I believe that's what it's called. It's backed up with hollyhocks that I started from bloom or from seed, and we'll go around on the inside to check those out. The clematis, Jackmani clematis, is just starting to go out of bloom, but let's walk in here and see what's blooming on the inside of the fence. This is what the clematis looks like on this side of the arbor. So usually late winter, I come in here and I cut this clematis back to about 12 inches above the ground. And this is how much it's taken off. I think it was March when I had cut it back. And look at that. It has gone crazy. It's filled with flowers. In front of that is some poppies. This is a pink peony poppy. Just look at that bloom. So I don't use these in cut flower arrangements for their blooms. This is what I use. I use their seed heads. It adds an amazing texture to your bouquets. Love that in arrangements. And then the hollyhocks. Oh my goodness. I am kind of proud of these because I started them from seed. But look at this double hollyhock. Isn't that just gorgeous? And look at this champagne colored bloom. Over here on this side of the arbor, there's some black-eyed Susans that have just started blooming. I love when these two overlap in blooms. Then this is another one that I had started from seed. It's almost like a black purple color. Isn't that gorgeous? And this is one that I had picked up at a garden center last year, and the bees and the hummingbirds are loving that flower right now. And then another poppy. This one is called Black Peony Poppy. It's kind of faded right now, but that has a gorgeous bloom. On this side of the fence and the arbor again, I have some Russian sage that I had said that I'm moving last year already, and I never got it moved. It's just a little too big for this space, but it's starting to bud up. It's going to look so pretty. And some more of the apricot fudge lilies. And I had recently planted a, what's this one called? Vanessa Bell David Austin Rose. It really looks like it needs water, so need to come in and give that water. But you see it's just some pockets here and there where the spring flowers had been, like the daffodils and tulips. So I just need to come in here and plant some summer flowers in there. If you have ideas what to place in these pockets, I would love to hear about it. The hibiscus is starting to bud up. That will give us a show real soon. And under the crabapple, I have a container that has forget-me-not flowers in it. Those are just about done blooming. And some lilies planted around with creeping phlox. Isn't that color gorgeous? And then I have a grass right in here. Some bachelor's buttons back in there. You see that? Do you see that poppy back there? Oh, they're so stunning. Actually there's two patches of lilies in here. Lacy lemon elderberry. This lily is pretty much done blooming. And I have a phlox that I got last year. It was almost dead when I planted it. It was covered in powdery mildew, but it's looking so pretty. I love that color in phlox. We have some summer drumstick alliums back there. The catmint is blooming. And there's a lot of like just peonies and alliums and things that are done blooming that really don't look so good right now. More lilies, dianthus on each side of the lilac. I planted a new one in here this year. The other one hadn't come back from last year, so those love that bright pink color beside the lilac. And there's really not a whole bunch in bloom otherwise. The chrysanthemum that is blooming a little bit early. And the viburnum is done blooming. So it should start getting its berries real soon, its fall berries. The Joe Pye weed is pretty much done blooming right now. I really need to come in here and thin it out a little bit. And the fairy garden, it needs to get some summer flowers in here because with the heat, these spring flowers are kind of slacking, kind of fading away. There is a butterfly flower on each side of the fairy garden, and we will see how close we can get to the chicken coop garden without being swooped at by the swallows. You can see the tree swallows sitting over there on that trellis. But there is another incredible hydrangea right in there. This is a white incredible hydrangea. The agastache, look at those blooms. And the dill is blooming as well. The petunias and the nasturtium are doing okay. And that is pretty much all that's blooming in there right now. And of course, as soon as I'm out here, the hens come to investigate, see what's going on. We'll just do a little backed up look from this angle of the garden because the swallows have already started swooping at me. But there's some more drumstick alliums in bloom right there. There's some butterfly weed and some echinacea coneflowers right behind the birdhouse. I don't think we'll get any closer. Do you hear them? Before we head up to the patio garden, I wanted to show you this. I kind of forgot about it. I had moved my greenhouse frame out here and planted purple hyacinth beans on them. And you can see that they put a little bit of growth on them. I think within another month or so, we should see quite a bit of growth, especially with the heat that we've been having. The dahlias, the lysianthus, and all the summer annuals are starting to fill in the cut flower garden. So hopefully soon we'll see some blooms in there. Okay, we're up here by the patio garden, and you might recognize those evergreens. I had them up on the porch all winter to kind of act as an evergreen up there. So we are going to plant them right in here because we have some, what are those called? Fern leaf something. If I can think of the name, I'll pop it up on the screen. But let's see what's in bloom up here. I think they're called fern leaf buckthorns, if I'm not incorrect. So I absolutely love the foliage on theirs. I planted those 2 summers ago and they're filling in quite nicely. Another evergreen that we need to get planted. But here's a little overlook of this area. I am so excited how this is coming together. We recently added this above ground pool in here. The boys have been absolutely loving it. But you might remember that I planted impatiens and marigold in here. The impatiens aren't doing that well. First of all, Maxine, our golden retriever, has knocked them off. I don't know how many times. So they're struggling a bit, but the marigolds are doing very good. Back in here, I want to move the lamb's ear forward a little bit, probably to this corner, probably this fall. And then I want to dig out some of those hostas back there and add some taller hostas. You see the astilbe is starting to bloom back there. Another hibiscus that's starting to bud up. The heucheras are almost done blooming, but the hummingbirds have been absolutely loving those flowers. The last rose is pretty much done blooming. There's still one flower with a Japanese beetle bug on it. Do you see that? Just a quick overlook of the containers that we have in here. I absolutely love sitting on this swing to drink my coffee in the morning. It's so peaceful back here with the birds. This is a container that I recently put together. It gets sun until about afternoon, usually around noonish, and then it gets some shade. So I have shade-loving flowers in there, some succulents hanging there, and just a repeat of the container that's on the other side. But these flowers are starting to fill in. It's so much fun this time of year. And in front of the deck, there's some echinacea, some grass, pinky winky hydrangea that is starting to bud up. See those buds? And on each side of the steps, there is a My Monet variegated foliage weigilla. I think that's how you pronounce them. And up here, you can see the flower containers that we planted, what was it, a month ago? They're filling in so nicely. The hydrangeas have been burnt a little bit by the sun, so I moved them to this side of the patio so they don't get quite as much sun. And my begonias. If you have care tips on begonias, I would love to hear about it. This is the first year that I've tried growing begonias in containers, and they're just kind of, I don't know, they're kind of crispy. I'm not sure, but the caladium is doing very well in there. There's a fern right there. This container is doing so good. The canna lily is taking off. It has filled in so much already. Can you imagine what this will look like by August? And the lavender with the little dwarf tomatoes around it. The lavender is struggling a little bit as well. I think I have to cut it back. I hope the AC unit isn't too loud. The AC is going right now. But we have some more heucheras, the astilbe. This has a soft peach color and it's just done blooming. In here I have some more annuals that need to get planted. There's actually a couple of perennials as well. But do you see this astilbe back here? I love that color. That's just my favorite color, astilbe. And we have a hosta with some fuchsia, our loud AC unit. And then there's just some more heuchera along the front. There's some ferns and hostas back in here. I'm hoping within the next few years, these will grow tall enough to kind of shroud the view of those pipes. We have a bobo hydrangea each side of this pathway that I just recently put in. I had some leftover flagstones from the new cut flower garden, so I decided to just put a little pathway in here. I've been wanting to do it since last summer, so I thought this is the perfect opportunity. But I want to come in here with some plants that kind of, just touch the edge of the pathway, kind of like the hosta is doing back there, to kind of soften the look of the stones. But this clematis, my grandma had purple clematis in her garden, and they really have a sentimental value to me. So I can't get enough of purple clematis in my garden. We have some perennial dusty miller planted around the edges, and this lamium, it's been blooming since spring and it hasn't quit. That is a fun ground cover to have. The perennial sweet pea, I didn't come in here soon enough to attach it to the trellis, so it's kind of just all over, but the blooms are starting. It looks so pretty. The astilbe right in front of it is done blooming already. And then I do have some begonias popped around in here. The foxglove are pretty much done blooming. I should come in here and deadhead them. The daylilies and the hydrangea in here are starting to bud up. I have some creeping jenny that starts all the way up there by the rocks, comes down here. This is a perennial for us. I absolutely love creeping jenny in the garden. It doesn't go crazy. It's just a nice soft ground cover. I believe this hydrangea is called City Line. It's a big leaf hydrangea and it gets bright pink flowers, usually midsummer. It is getting to be a little warm and I'm sweating, so I apologize. But let's head around front to see what's blooming in the new cut flower garden. Actually, just kidding. Let's first take a look at these containers up here in front of the house. So in front of the garage, I have some jazzberry supertunias with some diamond frost and a spiller that I always forget the name of, and this grass. This is a grass that grows to just underneath this light every fall. It is a very vigorous flower. And obviously, I just got a delivery. My landscape fabric for the new garden has arrived. And this geranium container, I love adding red geraniums to at least one spot around the garden somewhere. So that gets to be by the back door. A Korean lilac that I still haven't planted. And we'll kind of walk around the front of the porch to see what planters are up here. The violas I still haven't changed out with a summer annual. The salvia needs to be cut back, but these impatiens, I have one planter at each end of the porch. These impatiens, I wanted them to match the jazzberry supertunias. Aren't those very similar in color? I think they're called like violet impatiens. Not totally sure on that. And the roses need to be deadheaded as well. Ferns on each end of the porch as well. I absolutely love how ferns look hanging from a porch. There's also ferns on each side of the door, and then just some planters that I had put together. And some house plants, as well as a tropical hibiscus. I have had this thing for, I think it's the 4th or the 5th summer that I have it. Usually every fall I plant it into a bigger container. I cut it back before I put it into the garage for the winter. but that thing is just a monster. I absolutely love it. I'm just going to give you a heads up as we head out to the new cut flower garden. This thing has been a pain this spring already with all the weeds. Like, it has a noxious weed in it. So last fall we came in here, we did a double layer of cardboard to act as the weed barrier. We covered it with mulch. Everything else died, and this grass did not. So we have come in here already 3 times and sprayed this weed. You can see in the back, the weed is finally kind of dying. I do not spray in my gardens unless I absolutely have to. And this garden has cost a few tears already. I was just feeling overwhelmed with all of the weeding. Like, we've come in here twice and weeded all of this grass. It comes back. We've sprayed it 3 times and it's still coming back. So we are just going to come in here and push back the mulch and lay down landscape fabric. I really didn't want to do that because I want this to be an area that the pollinators can just hang out in. But to save us some work, I think we're just going to do that. Lay down landscape fabric and put the mulch back over top of it. But there's some pretty things that are in bloom in here right now. First of all, we finally laid all the flagstone in here in these pathways. Doesn't it look so much better? So I do want to come in here with pea gravel and just kind of fill in the cracks. And I have had people tell me that these will forever be shifting and tripping people, but we really, like, this garden will not be used to walk through. Like, we'll kind of walk around it, but I don't think we'll be walking through here a lot except for when we come in here to plant, do weeding, whatever. But I really need to show you this weed, because if you have suggestions on how to get rid of a weed like that, like, it just kind of spreads horizontally through the soil. I don't even know how to get rid of it. So over here, I have a Coco Loco rose on each side of this pathway. It's almost done with its first flush of blooms, but just look at that color. Oh my goodness. And some lilies that are in bloom. These grow, I think the tag said 4 feet tall. So I had planted the bulbs just this spring, so they're still babies, but isn't that color just so pretty? Over here we have some peach sky yarrow. I love that color. And some apricot colored Asiatic lilies. This is the first year they bloom for me. And then in each corner in here, we have some creeping phlox. Let me show you the color of it. Well, that looks so pretty next spring if it kind of spills out over the rocks. And the other side is pretty much just the same thing. The only thing that's different on this side is the color of the lilies. Look at that color. They're not in bloom yet, but isn't that just the prettiest, softest pink color? I can't wait to see those in bloom. I decided to come up here on the porch where there's a little bit more shade. It's warm out in the sun, but stay tuned for more because the summer annuals will start blooming in the cut flower garden, and the cut flower garden is only going to get prettier as the summer progresses. I hope so much you enjoyed walking through the garden with me today, friends. Have an amazing week, and I will see you right back here next Saturday. Bye.